Hi everybody and welcome to another competitive modern league. This week I'm playing Jeskai Geist, and the primary reason is it's been a while since I've played it, like a month, 3 weeks, I'm not sure. And I just wasn't sure what else to play, so when in doubt, I'm going to play my standard jam. If you missed my big Jeskai announcement, I'm going to put a link into a link right up here so that you can check it out. I'll also put a link in the description. If you like Jeskai, it's going to be something you don't want to miss. I uploaded it on Sunday, so go check that out if you haven't already. I want to talk a little bit about the deck before I get started this week and why I'm doing some of the things that I'm doing. So the way that I've kind of enjoyed building my Jeskai decks lately is sort of for them to be a bit general in game one. And I mean, of course, every deck is general. You always refine it a bit more after sideboard, but just with some of the cards that aren't always good. For example, Vendilion Click. We have one in the main, kind of because Storm is really popular right now, and then one on the side. And so in the matchups where Geist isn't good or where we really want Vendilion Click, in games 2 and 3 we get to bring in the other one and refine it. Conversely, if Geist is really good in that particular matchup, then we get to bring a third Geist in. Same thing with Cryptic Command. It can be, in some matchups, it can be a big clunky spell. In some matchups, it's exactly what you want. So we kind of just have our sideboard configured so that some of our cards we get to, it's not quite double up on them, but we get to increase the density of the deck in any one of these directions or a combination thereof. For example, Vendilion Click in the Jeskai mirrors is kind of weird because it can be a little bit of a liability with Electrolyze, but at the same time, sometimes it's exactly what you need to help you resolve a threat, because you can play it at the end of their turn, and sometimes they're faced with either countering it, but if they let it resolve, then you get to take their interaction and untap and do what it is that you want to do. Speaking of Jeskai, the prevalence of it and Storm is a good reason, I think, to run multiple spell snares right now. Also, I'm not super set up for the mirror. One thing that, I'm set up from the mirror in the fact that I have 3 Geist and the clicks, but one of the things that I don't have that you used to see a lot in blue mirrors are spells like Elspeth or Karanos, which is basically just knowing that the game is going to go long and you're going to set up at some point to get in a fight at the end of their turn so you can untap and hold up this spell and resolve like one of these big finishers. I don't really have that going on right now, but I'm not going to worry about it so much. I just want to kind of see how things play out the way we're set up now. Talking a bit more about the sideboard, I know that it's really popular for lists to run Supreme Verdict. I just can't. I have trouble running that card because some of the matchups that you want it in, you also want your creatures. For example, like against Affinity, right? You're gonna keep in your spell Quellers. Against humans, you're probably gonna keep in your spell Quellers. And against Tron, Eldrazi Tron, you're probably gonna still keep in your spell Quellers. You know, they can interact with the Thought-Knot Seer favorably through Cavern of Souls. And so I really hate, and I did in the old Geist list too, I really hated running sideboard sweepers that also conflict with kind of what my core strategy is. And if you think about this deck, and I would even say in some instances like Geist has sort of become, he's not the core of the strategy like he was when you were running 4 in the deck and it was really truly just a Geist deck. I've been saying for a while that I think this deck is more of a deck that it can turn 3 Geist and run away with the game, but a lot of times it's more playing Geist at the appropriate time as opposed to trying to force it. And so, that being said, our core strategy still kind of revolves around these 3 drops that are going to die to a sweeper that kills everything. And so I'm just not ready to accept that nombo, which means that I'm still interested in looking at cards like Dusk Dawn and Engineered Explosives as my sweepers. I also took a look at Settle the Wreckage. Maybe I'm still not sure about that card. It does seem like it could be quite good in a lot of matchups, But the one place I don't like it that much is against Storm, primarily because there's some chance potentially that if you give them that, well, I don't know how many basics they really run, but maybe that's not a big issue. But my primary reason for not wanting to run it against Storm was that I could see this horrible world in which you try to get rid of all their goblin tokens and they remand or settle the wreckage, and then they remand it again and you're dead. So one of the reasons I'm running 2 engineered explosives is because Storm is really popular, and I wanted more ways to interact with the goblins game plan, because I think that's pretty much what they're going to be all about on game 2 and 3. Also, I was looking at the 5-color humans list. They have a lot of 2s, and so does the collected company list. And so while engineered explosives has the potential to be a little slow, it's not like you don't have ways to interact with their other creatures. So if you're bolting things like their champion of the parishes and stuff like that and slowing the game down, you might be able to, drop down in explosives on turn 4 or 5, and you don't always need to kill every creature. A lot of times if you're killing 2 to 3, that's plenty. The other thing is, obviously it's really good against Affinity, which is popular right now as well. So engineered explosives, it's also reasonable against Death Shadow because it kills their scariest thing. So it seems pretty good against, it's what we want against Storm. It seems reasonable against 5-color humans. It seems reasonable against Collected Company. It's reasonable against Death Shadow. You can bring it in against Eldrazi Tron to kill their chalices. And then against Eldrazi Tron and other big creature decks, Death Shadow, we also do get to bring in this spell. Now, I think this against Death Shadow is kind of dependent on, I guess, just how you view the matchup. I know I was looking at Jonathan Rossum's article a while back, and I think I don't remember if he takes out his Geists. I think we approach that matchup differently. I still want to be aggressive. I think Geist is the best card in that matchup, and that's kind of how I've been approaching it, which I think makes this better. So anyway, I think that's more or less all I need to say about the deck. I do want to touch on a Braid. This is because 5-color humans is really popular. I like being able to kill their Vial or kill their creatures. It's also really great against Affinity. The reason Shadow of Doubt is in here is that I tested it as a 2-of for a little while the Valakut decks were really popular. And I did play like 15 games with a friend of mine who has a Valakut deck and found out that it's actually kind of exactly what we wanted against Valakut. Now that deck has kind of dropped off, but I'm not quite ready to let go of it because I'm just kind of still gauging its application in general use. But the reason you want it against Valakut is it's basically a 2-mana counter that draws a card. And sometimes if you're trying to you need to slow Valakut down, so you need to like Serum Visions their early plays, or like negate. I know I'm not running Negate, I'm just using an example. Logic Knot their early plays, but the problem is you kind of want Logic Knot, Negates, and some of your other spells for their later plays too. So Shadow of Doubt allows you to, say, counter a Farseek while replacing itself so that you're not running yourself out of the cards that you're going to need later. I don't know that it's good enough against Eldrazi Tron. I would kind of think not. It's probably good enough to consider against regular Tron. But anyway, I just kind of want to keep it for now. I've trimmed on the graveyard hate a little bit by only running 1 extraction. The one other card I'm not sure about is actually Thundermaw Hellkite. It might actually, right now, Jeskai Geist, Jeskai Tempo, whatever, is the #1 deck on Magic, on MTG Goldfish, which is crazy to me. But it makes me almost wonder if Storm Breath is something that I should be considering. Both still died at Bolt Snap Bolt, but I'm maybe it's really not either dragon. Maybe I do need to be looking at something like a Karanos at this point to help improve the Jeskai mirror. Also, cards worth considering if the Jeskai mirror becomes a big thing is trying to find a way to get another Igonjo Castle back in, and that's really just because it allows you to really protect your Geist from flashing in Snapcaster Mages, flashing in Vendilion Clicks, and then also allows you to attack into their Geist of St. Traff, but you get to keep the Geist. So I'm not going to do that just yet, although if I was going to, it's hard. It's hard to tell what land I'd cut. It might be this Hollowed Fountain. Might be able to trim a Hollowed Fountain for an Iganjo Castle. Maybe a Sulphur Falls. Probably the Sulphur Falls. I'm just kind of guessing. I'm not doing the math right now. I don't know if there's anything else I want to say. So again, just the things I'm not sure about at this point are basically this card. And I'm kind of still not 100% sure on this one. The 5 mana part is really just, that's like a potential bonus. I'm really just worried. I really just want the one-sided Wrath. I don't want to negatively impact my other creatures. Okay, I think I've kind of said enough. I think you guys know what all the other cards are for, so let's jump into a game. Alright, we're on the play. This seems like a fine starting hand. We have 2 lands here. And then we can cast basically all of our interaction except these Quellers, but we are on the draw, so we have a chance at drawing a land here. Grixis Shadow is going to be my guess. Especially, yeah, just shocking. Okay, there's the 3rd land. Just shocking so that they can Thought Scour. Or opting. I still think it's probably Grixis Shadow. Could be Grixis Control. Okay, so it's definitely Grixis Shadow. It's going to be hoping to send this burn upstairs. Let's go ahead and... I think we can just get a Steam Vents here. Yeah, okay, so especially now this can get a Plains if we want it to. Okay, I like untapping with Spell Queller up. I don't see a reason yet to play the other Steam Vents. I'm not gonna fire this burn off immediately. See if our opponent shocks. They usually like to try to get themselves around 10. Colligan's command? Okay, just snap opt. This feels like a pretty good Queller target to me. They don't have Fatal Push Up at the moment. They can't Stubborn Denial. They could untap and play a big scary monster, but I mean they can kind of do that anyway. And in fact, if we can draw another white source, if they play their big scary monster and hold up, if they play their big scary monster next turn and untap, basically if they untap, play the big scary monster, and then keep a blue up, if we draw another white source, we might be able to go ahead and path it, and then interact with their Stubborn Denial with a Spell Queller. I'm just going to go ahead and Spell Queller. Also here, there is some chance that they're a little bit short on lands, and so if they untap and want to kill our Spell Queller, no, they should be fine, because like if they untap, bolt the Queller, then they get to play Snapcaster Mage without paying the cost. I don't think... Did they fetch this turn? Am I just dumb? Oh, yeah, they did. Still, I'm kind of like okay with that. This is kind of what I was saying. Like, oh, and they just screwed up and didn't cast their Snapcaster Mage. Oops for them. What I was gonna say is in that exchange, so they kill our Queller, but then they get denied the. Okay, so that's a little worse, but let's see what we draw here. I'll play this, even though I'll show them that's what our draw is, because I do want to get another white source into play. So I'm talking too fast, I'm clicking too quickly. They screwed up a bit with their Snapcaster Mage, but what I was saying when I was talking about why I wanted to Queller is I didn't think they could push. I forgot that they cracked the Delta. But the other thing I was thinking is even if they could push, if they do so now, then they don't get any value out of their Snapcaster Mage, which I felt kind of fine about. Alright, so I am going to go ahead and Queller now. And this, I'm going to get a Sacred Foundry. Let's attack. Alright, so we effectively have them at 1 point of life. The 2 damage by shocking could be relevant. I'm just going to go ahead and play the Steam Vents tapped. Alright, so I think what I'm going to do here is, especially if we get in for damage, let's see what our opponent does here. Alright, sure, you can Thought Scour yourself. Kind of depends on how many Stubborn Denials he actually has. I kind of want to, knowing that, I guess I can take the 4 and go to 5. Let's think here. I'm going to take the 4 and wait till the end step. My plan is to use this Cryptic Command as a removal spell. Alright, now I'm going to try to bolt end of, or Helix end of turn here. See if he has another one. Right. Everything is working perfectly. Now we get to attack with Snap or Spell Queller. And then bolt our opponent out of the game. All right, so to me, the way I want to fight this matchup, and I'm very curious to talk to Rossum and Harlan about this, because I think Jonathan advocates, like, he brings in Pias, and does he? I can't remember if he takes out Geist or not. Also, I think a lot of people like to take out Spell Snares, but I like keeping at least one in. People will say, like, well, it only hits Snapcaster Mage, and that's true. But the thing is, like, the matchup is likely to end. You have answers to their stuff, basically. And so there's a good chance, like, yes, they have not Stubborn Denial. They have whatever that 1-mana counter is. I always get Stubborn Denial and Disdainful Stroke confused. It is Stubborn Denial. But, you know, like when you have Purge, you have 5 instant speed ways to kill black creatures. And the way that they claw, the way that they grind in this game is with their Snapcaster Mages. And so I feel like, yes, Spell Snare only answers Snap, but it answers the way the game is likely to go. Now, if they just have a God Hand and they're just like really quick Double Death Shadow, you're just probably going to lose that game anyway. And I feel like this answers the state that the game is going to end up being in. Okay, so let's see here. I don't like Electrolyze as much. The stuff I definitely want is, let's see what I can bring in here. I want all of this. I want this, and maybe I want this. I think Click is a faster clock. Let's see. Although Spell Queller does have fine interaction. I want to cut the electrolyzes and the cryptic commands. I don't think this matchup is so much about cryptic. I think it's about maybe even cut all of these. This is the way I used to fight against Delver, because I felt like the Delver matchup was less about counter spells except for Dispel, and it was more about Dispel and Spell Snare was what Grixis Delver was about. So let's try this. Let's trim this stuff. Mixed it up in a weird way. Let me see real quick here what I'm working with. Clicks, Geists, Quellers. Let's see. I can probably trim a Spell Queller. This also allows us to potentially interact with things like Stubborn Denial. Just keeping burn and removal and threats. I'm going to give this a shot. I think it's fine. Probably going to take the path. Yeah. Excellent. All right, let's just get this colonnade out of the way here. I said this before, but if you look here where it says pass turn none, I guess you can't see it. I already said this. Basically, the keystroke that is normally for passing the turn, I have gotten rid of. Okay, so let's Serum Visions. Drawing lots of Quellers. I kind of want all of these. Double Path is great. I want to get my lands into play. I'm going to just stack them like this. Serum Visions again. We really have like no burn. So I'm going to put this on bottom, this on top. And I'm putting the bolts on the bottom because we're just I don't know that I need to start like trying to assemble. I mean, you always want to be assembling burn, I guess, but I feel jittery like if I had too much coffee. Probably because I have. Like if I had more burn spells and I thought that might be reasonable, I might do that, but we already have sort of like more of these controlling cards, and I kind of think we're more on that plan. I'm sure you'll be enthused to see that we drew 2 paths. See, this is kind of what I was talking about, like Thoughtseize, snapping back Thoughtseize. It's like we're already like we're kind of grinding here, or we're starting to, and I think that's what this matchup is really about. I don't know what I'm going to draw. I'm going to play the Plains. I do want to start getting red into play, but I don't have any yet, and I'm sure that I want a Queller. I'm okay to get hit with the Snapcaster Mage, but I'm going to most likely be Spell Quellering at the end of turn if he doesn't do anything. I'm not going to Spell Queller Serum Visions. Mainly because it's plausible that he has some way to deal himself some damage and like that, and then play a Death Shadow, which I'd rather try and Queller a Death Shadow. Well, I'm going to attack. Now, I made a decision there to basically kind of turn on his Stubborn Denial, but there's a chance that he could like denial twice. But my plan was to basically try to path this Death Shadow, because the Stubborn Denial was live with only 1 mana up anyway. But what I would like to do is just Queller his Stubborn Denial. Opt is obviously fine. Kind of curious. So Fatal Push, I think it's just if leaves the battlefield. So if we Queller this, he can probably path the other one, but then we have a snap path for it. I'm going to go ahead and get a Steam Vents. And Spell Queller the Stubborn Denial. So now if he has a push, he could use it. Let's try to block the Snapcaster Mage. Alright. One more time, here's the deck. Nothing much to say about that match. It was like a Death Shadow match. Went pretty well for us, obviously. Okay, everybody, thank you very much for watching, and I will see you tomorrow for round 2.